It starts as a quiet tension, like a weight in your chest you can't quite explain. You've got a job, you're doing what's expected, but deep down, there's a sense that something is missing, that maybe this life you've built was never truly yours to begin with. That feeling isn't failure, it's the signal of a deeper truth knocking on the door of your awareness, a truth that says you weren't made just to fit in, you were made to wake up. The system didn't teach you to dream, it taught you to comply. Titles became our trophies. Paychecks became our sense of security, and we started measuring our worth by the logos on our business cards instead of the light in our hearts. Society never asked what sets your soul on fire. It only asked, what do you do for a living? And so millions wake up each day, not to live, but to endure, not to serve, but to survive. But here's the truth you were never told. God didn't create you just to pay bills and obey clocks. You weren't born to be a number in a spreadsheet or a cog in someone else's machine. You are a divine creation, designed for something greater, something sacred. And every time you trade your purpose for a paycheck, a small part of you fades. That's why so many men feel exhausted even after a full night's sleep. It's not the body that's tired, it's the soul. What if work wasn't supposed to be punishment? What if it was meant to be an extension of your calling? Imagine waking up and knowing that what you do today will echo in someone else's life forever. That your effort, no matter how small, is part of something eternal. That's not fantasy, that's what alignment feels like, that's what purpose does. It doesn't drain you, it fuels you. It doesn't cage you, it sets you free. So before we talk about action, we need to confront this silent enemy. The belief that employment is the goal. It's not. It never was. Employment is just a tool. Your calling is the compass. And once you realize this, you'll stop chasing empty titles and start pursuing something that fills your lungs with meaning. Because believing before you visualize is how every great transformation begins. You were not created to wake up already exhausted, drag yourself into a job that numbs your soul, and call that life. That's not divine design. That's societal hypnosis. You were formed with intention, with gifts etched into your spirit before you ever walked this earth. When all you do is survive, you're only accessing a fraction of who you are. God didn't craft you to just manage deadlines and balance bills. He created you to light up rooms, to heal through words, to bless others with presence. There's a world inside you waiting to be awakened, but it can't rise while you're sleepwalking through a job that kills your joy. That empty feeling you carry? It's not burnout, it's the pain of untapped purpose. The body may be tired, but it's the soul that's suffocating, because no amount of money, promotions, or praise will ever replace the fulfillment of doing what you were truly called to do. You can't fill a spiritual void with corporate incentives. Deep inside you know this. Every time you walk into a room where your gifts are ignored, where your heart feels invisible, your soul whispers, there must be more than this. And there is. But you have to stop choosing safety over significance. Your life is not a job description. Your value doesn't lie in how well you meet someone else's expectations. God's purpose for you may start where you are, but it never ends there. It grows. It calls you higher. You were meant to work with passion, not pressure, to live with presence, not just performance. Sometimes your purpose is buried beneath routine, waiting for one bold decision to bring it to life. And when that moment comes, when you say yes to more, it's not the world around you that changes first, it's the fire within you that reignites. So picture this. You wake up with clarity, not confusion. You walk into your workspace, not to endure another day, but to serve, to create, to pour out your soul with meaning. You feel the flow of peace and purpose in every task, from the simplest to the most complex. You're no longer working to prove your worth. You're working because your heart overflows with something sacred to give. That's not a fantasy. That's the beginning of true alignment. And when that alignment happens, life starts to feel lighter, full of movement, full of miracles. Survival might cover your needs, but only purpose will awaken your soul. You weren't born just to get through the day. You were born to transform every place you step into. And when you realize that, the days stop dragging and start rising. That's when abundance begins, not just in your bank account, but in your spirit. That's when you begin to encher o coração de felicidade. And that's when God starts showing you just how limitless your life can be when you finally stop surviving and start living. Most people think of worship as something that happens in a church with music and sermons. But what if your real altar is your desk, your toolbox, your laptop? You see, when your work is aligned with your calling, every task becomes sacred. You're not just fixing problems, you're healing lives. You're not just selling products, you're spreading solutions. God doesn't care about job titles. He cares about the heart you bring to your labor. And when you offer that heart with excellence and integrity, your work becomes holy. That's why it doesn't matter if you're cleaning floors or leading a company. What matters is the spirit behind it. If you sweep the floor with love, you've offered more worship than someone chasing applause in a spotlight. Heaven values obedience over recognition. God isn't asking you to impress the world. He's asking you to serve with devotion. And when you do, even the smallest gesture becomes eternal. A kind word, a thoughtful act, a humble job done with joy. These are the new definitions of success. When you start seeing your work as worship, your attitude changes. You stop dreading Mondays. You stop praying for weekends to arrive faster. You begin each task with gratitude instead of resentment. Why? Because you're not working for man. You're working for something higher. Colossians 3:23 says, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters." This truth flips everything. Work stops being punishment and becomes purpose in motion. And there's beauty in that shift. Suddenly, your ordinary routine becomes a divine rhythm. You realize that excellence in the little things honors God just as much as big, bold moves. Preparing a meal with love, worship. Helping a co-worker without expecting credit, worship. Solving problems that no one else notices, worship. Every act of excellence, done with love, becomes a spiritual offering. Not to impress, just to express the presence of God in you. This is when the workplace turns into a sanctuary, not because the environment changes, but because you do. You become someone who no longer sees tasks, but opportunities. Opportunities to serve, to reflect the divine, to encher o coração de felicidade with every action. And when you show up like that, day after day, your influence multiplies, your peace grows, and without even trying, your presence starts to awaken others to something greater. Fear doesn't always come dressed as panic. Sometimes it wears a suit and speaks like common sense. Be realistic. Now's not the right time. You have responsibilities. These phrases sound rational, but they're often fear in disguise. And fear, when not confronted, builds invisible cages, cages made of doubt, delay, and spiritual hesitation. Many men never abandon a lifeless job, not because they lack skills, but because they've mistaken fear for wisdom. But real wisdom requires courage. And courage means trusting the invisible more than the familiar. You've probably felt it before, that quiet stirring in your soul that says, "There's something more for me." But just as quickly your mind jumps in, what if I fail? What if I lose everything? What will people think? This is the battlefield. Your calling isn't just a dream, it's a war zone of decisions. And the greatest enemy isn't rejection, it's hesitation. The truth is, most never pursue their purpose not because they're weak, but because they overthink the unknown and undertrust their divine compass. But let me ask you, who planted the belief that safety is the highest goal in life? When did survival become more noble than service? God never promised ease. He promised presence. And he often calls us out of the boat when the waves are still crashing. Remember Peter? He walked on water only when he dared to move. Fear will always shout louder at the edge of your breakthrough. That's when you know you're close, because fear doesn't guard failures. It guards portals to transformation. And what if you fail? So what? Failure doesn't ruin purpose, it reveals resilience. Every man on a divine path will stumble. That's part of the process. But each stumble teaches, each rejection sharpens, each silence from the world drives you closer to the voice of God. Napoleon Hill said it best, "Every adversity carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit." So fear isn't a stop sign, it's a signal that growth is near and comfort is lying to you. When fear rises, don't retreat, refocus. Don't ask, what could go wrong? Ask, what will happen if I stay stuck? Because nothing is more expensive than a life unlived, and nothing dishonors your divine potential more than hiding it under logic that's really just fear wearing a mask. Your future doesn't need perfection. It needs faith. And the moment you choose movement over mental paralysis, you begin to superare aquilo que te prende and step fully into the man God designed you to become. Every calling requires a crossing. Between where you are and where you're meant to be lies a space called uncertainty. It's the hallway between comfort and calling, and it's filled with silence. Doubt echoes loudest in that silence, but doubt isn't the enemy. It's a doorway, a sacred test. God never calls us into clarity, he calls us into trust, and trust often looks like walking forward with trembling legs, whispering prayers between every breath. That's not weakness. That's what faith looks like in motion. Think of Peter stepping out of the boat while the storm was still raging. He didn't wait for calm waters. He moved when Jesus said, "Come." That's the invitation still echoing for every man who feels the pull towards something deeper. You don't need to have it all figured out. You need to believe enough to move. Because when your feet respond to faith, heaven responds with provision. The sea didn't part before Moses lifted his staff. The miracle came after the motion. Faith isn't pretending you're not afraid. It's deciding that fear doesn't get to make your choices anymore. And once you make that shift, something powerful begins to happen. Opportunities open. Peace follows obedience. And your calling starts pulling you forward faster than fear can hold you back. It's not about certainty. It's about surrender. And surrender always leads to strength. Because when you release the outcome, God handles the impossible. This is the sacred threshold where men are reborn, not through status but through surrender. You stop chasing safety and start building significance. You trade titles for transformation, and you realize the peace you've been begging for isn't on the other side of success. It's on the other side of obedience. The moment you take that step, yes, even with shaking knees, grace meets you mid-air. The invisible becomes visible. And for the first time in years, your heart begins to fill with true happiness. And if this speaks to you, let it mark your moment. Don't scroll past this like another piece of content. Let it be your line in the sand. Copy these words below and write them in the comments, not for me, but as a declaration to yourself. Purpose over paycheck, because that single shift in belief might just be the beginning of the life you've been praying for. There's a lie many of us were taught early, that to serve God we must suffer. That purpose and prosperity can't live in the same sentence, that wealth corrupts and only struggle purifies. But that idea doesn't come from God, it comes from fear-based tradition. The truth is, When your work is aligned with your calling, abundance flows not as a reward, but as a reflection of divine alignment. Prosperity isn't the enemy of purpose. It's the echo of it when you're walking in what was meant for you. Think of a man who wakes up each day filled with peace, excited by what he does, knowing he's making a difference. Do you really believe that man isn't worthy of financial blessing too? God's design is wholeness, not division. When you live your purpose, you're not just helping others, you're honoring the source that created you. And when you bring value with love and discipline, the world responds, resources come, clients show up, ideas multiply, peace enters, and you start to live, not just earn. Money is not the root of evil. Misalignment is. The love of money leads to destruction, but the use of money, guided by purpose, leads to expansion. When you make peace with prosperity, you stop sabotaging your own growth. You stop shrinking in rooms where you're meant to shine. You stop apologizing for wanting more, because now you know why you want it. It's not about ego. It's about impact. It's not about greed. It's about responsibility. Every time you operate from your gifts with integrity, you open gates. And every gate leads to someone whose life will be changed because you had the courage to say yes. That's how abundance works. It's not magic. It's motion. It's obedience in action. And when you stop resisting success and start embracing it as part of your calling, things begin to align faster than you imagined. The connections, the finances, the energy, they follow purpose like rivers follow gravity. So if you've ever felt guilty for wanting more, it's time to release that weight. You were not created to just survive. You were created to thrive, spiritually, emotionally, financially. And the moment you believe that truth deeply, something shifts. Your hands open wider, your prayers grow bolder, and your heart begins to encher de felicidade, not with illusions, but with the certainty that abundance and calling are not opposites. They are allies. There's a quiet truth most people miss. Transformation doesn't happen all at once. It happens in layers, in quiet choices, in unseen moments. And right now, you might be closer to your calling than you realize. The discomfort you feel isn't a setback. It's the sign that your old life no longer fits. That tug in your chest, that's not anxiety. That's alignment knocking. You're not lost. You're shedding, evolving, stepping into the man you were always meant to be. Too often we delay change, thinking we need more time, more clarity, more perfection. But what if you already have everything you need to begin? What if the next level of your life doesn't require a new degree, a new job, or a new city, but simply a new perspective? A new commitment to see your current place as preparation, not punishment. Because once you shift your vision, your entire world starts to shift with you. And suddenly, what felt like routine becomes revelation. Maybe you've been waiting for a sign. This is it. The life of meaning, peace, and prosperity you've imagined isn't just possible. It's waiting. But it requires a decision, not a loud one, a firm one. A heart decision that says, I will no longer live on autopilot. I will no longer settle for survival. Because purpose doesn't find passive men. It finds men who are willing to say yes before the path is clear, who are willing to move with faith, who believe before they visualize. You don't need to become someone else. You need to remember who you are, the man God designed, the one with strength forged through storms, the one with wisdom born of pain, the one who still carries a dream he hasn't given up on, even if he's buried it deep. That dream is still alive, and God is still waiting. The moment you believe that truth, everything changes. The doors open, the energy returns. And you begin to encher o coração de felicidade, because now you're living as you were created to live. So don't let today pass like just another day. Let it be your confirmation, your awakening. Let it be the reminder that you're not here to chase titles or just make ends meet. You're here to change atmospheres, to bless lives, to walk boldly in purpose, and to do it with joy, abundance, and unshakable peace. You're not far away. You're one decision closer. And that decision, my friend, is already in your hands. Somewhere along the way, many of us accepted a life that doesn't match our spirit. We traded joy for duty, fire for fatigue, but deep inside, the truth never left. You were made for more than tasks, more than paychecks, more than titles. You were made to live in alignment, to serve with passion, to wake up each day with meaning in your chest. And maybe today, yes, today is the moment you stop chasing the illusion of success and start stepping fully into your divine assignment, not tomorrow, now. And if your heart is stirring, don't silence it. Feed it, because the journey doesn't end here. It's only beginning. Hit play on the next video that's appearing on your screen, and let's continue unlocking the mysteries of your mind, your purpose, and the power that lives within you. You were not born to survive. You were born to transform everything you touch. We'll meet you there,